Hey guys, I'm back with a new video. So in the previous video we learned about the theory of basically traversing the DOM. So in this video let us see how we can work with a practical demo to understand the concepts that we had covered in the previous video. Now in front of you can see that we have created a HTML boilerplate from the previous videos. So in this you can see we are having a header element within which we have a h1 element. Then next to the header we are having a main element. Within the main we have h2 element that is sitting next to h3p input tag and ul tag. Now within the ul tag you have some allies, and next to ul and corresponding elements that we have is sitting a p tag. Okay, so in this video let us see how we can work with these elements and understand how we can traverse the DOM level by level. We can traverse up the DOM, we can traverse along the same level, and we can also dig deeper to basically query for certain elements that are down your current level. So let us start. Now what I want to do is I want to see all the child nodes of the only main element that we are having. Okay, so you can see these elements are all nested within the main element, within the main tag. So I want to basically get a reference for these elements. So what I will do is I will open the file with live server and let it run. Now how we can do that is using query selector. So let me increase the font size here. Okay, and I will open the console here. So inspect. Now let us start. So in the console what I will do is I will write const only main. So basically I will be targeting our main element or the main tag document.query selector, and I will say I want my only main tag, the only main element, the very first main that we have seen in our HTML. I want to get a reference for that in form of a DOM object. Okay, so this says query selector, let us say only main. So now we have the reference to our main element, and you can see within these we have some elements nested within the main element. So it's the h2 element and h3p input and also a ul tag within which we have some nested allies. Okay, now what I will do is I will log to the console only main dot children. Now what it will give you, so as you can see here, it spits out an HTML collection which is an array-like object in the end, but it just mimics some of the behavior of arrays as I had discussed in the previous whiteboard video. So this children property will give you access to all the child element nodes. In this case the text nodes are excluded. So if we want to access the second child node, we can say, so let me access that. I will say only main dot children, because you know that HTML collection is just like an array, so you can use indexing, and to access the second child you will use the index 1, because you know for arrays or for any collection the indexing begins from 0. Okay, so the second child of the only main, or you can say the second child of the main element, is this h3. Okay, so this will give you access or a reference that I'm not storing currently. So we are accessing the second child of our main element. Now as we had discussed in the previous videos that even the white spaces that we use to indent our HTML code is used as text nodes, but they are not reflected when we try to use the children property on a DOM current element. But if I try to access child nodes for the current element, we will also get these text node including the white spaces. So, and this method, instead of giving an HTML collection like children, will give us a node list. Okay, an array like object, and you can see we will have a bunch of text nodes there. So what I will do is I will say only main dot child nodes, press enter, Okay, so as you can see, now we are getting a node list instead of an HTML collection. So this is not an HTML collection, this is a node list. So the main difference between children and the child nodes is basically that the children select the child element nodes, whereas the child nodes select the child nodes, which also include the text node, as you can see. So it basically include all the spaces that you nest for, let me show you this. I'm back to my Visual Studio Code. As you can see, these spaces which provide the indentation to your elements, they are also text nodes. So these are also included when you basically run the query child nodes. Okay, when you're trying to fetch the child nodes for a particular element, these will also get returned in form of a node list. Okay, but when you use children, we are not concerned about text node in that case. We only get the elements, the main elements. Okay, so moving on. Now let us suppose I want to access the last paragraph we have. So there are a couple of ways to do this. Let us see them. So back to my console. What I will do is I will write const last paragraph, and I will use the query selector document dot query selector, and I will say p colon last hyphen of hyphen type and press enter. Okay, so let me log this to the console. Last paragraph, press enter. So as you can see, we have selected the last paragraph of the main element. Okay, so but since we already have the reference to the main element, we can just make use of the last child method on the main element. Okay, so what I will do is I will say only main dot last element child, and this will give us the same element. Okay, yes, we are now also getting the paragraph, the last paragraph of our main element. Okay, so as you can see here that the last paragraph that you're having, which is this one, which is being highlighted, is basically your last element child of the main element. Okay, so you can access it using both ways, using the query selector or using the last element child. Now you can also scan the entire document and then query for it, but it would be rather suboptimal in my opinion. And lastly, you can use the query selector on the div to select the last paragraph. So what I will do is I can also say only div dot query selector. So let me try that. So I will say only div dot query selector, and I will say p colon last of type and press enter. Oh, it's only main. So let me correct this. Only main, press enter. So we are getting the last paragraph of the main element. Okay, so this also works fine because we are now accessing from one level up. Instead of accessing from the document, we are applying the query selector on the main element. Okay, so this will be a little faster compared to when we were trying to access from the ancestor of this element, which is the document. Okay, so these are some bunch of ways that you can use to access your last paragraph of the main element. So moving further, let us see the parent methods in action. So these were all the children methods that I wanted to discuss. So let us try to reach out to the parent of the last paragraph that we already have stored as a reference in the variable up. So what I will do is I will say last paragraph dot parent node. Okay, so now you can see the last paragraph has a parent, which is the main element. Okay, so let me show you this. I'm back in my Visual Studio Code. You can see this is your last paragraph and it is nested within your main element. So if I go one level up the DOM tree, we can easily see that we have main as the direct parent of the paragraph, the last paragraph. Okay, So the one thing you need to understand is that you cannot have more than one parent element or parent node, but you can have more than one child nodes. Okay, every node will have a single parent, a single direct parent. Okay, but each node can have multiple children of its own. This is very important to understand. Now parent node will give you access to the nearest parent node, okay, the closest one. Now parent element node will give you access to the nearest parent element node. So lastly, we will discuss about how we can access the sibling elements before we wrap up with this video. Now what I want to do is I want to access the previous sibling of the only main that we have, that we had already selected in the only main variable. So what I will do is, so back to my browser, I will say only main, which is the main element that we have already selected. What I will do is I will access the previous element. So previous element sibling and press enter. Okay, so we are on the same level. Okay, if you refer the diagram that I showed in the previous video, you can easily visualize this. So using the previous element sibling, because we want the element node and not the white space. Okay, if I had used previous sibling, then we also have got the white space as well. But I'm using the previous element sibling because we are only interested in having the element and not the text nodes. Okay, so let me show you this using Visual Studio Code. You can see this main element. Okay, its previous element sibling is the one which is sitting adjacent to it, okay, which is header, and it is previous to it. Okay, so it is sitting adjacent to it and it is in the leftmost position. Okay, so that is why when we say previous element sibling, we are getting the header element back, as you can see here. So let us access the next sibling of the main element that we already have. For this we can say only main dot next element sibling. So just change previous to next and press enter. Okay, so we are getting the script which I am currently not using because we are directly working with the console. Okay, so as you can see, we're getting the script. So this, which script is this? Okay, so this is the script that is auto injected by Visual Studio Code. Okay, so whenever you basically run your HTML file using Visual Studio Code live server, this script will get automatically injected in your HTML DOM. So it is basically defined just before the body tag and just after the main element, because the main element was the last element that was defined in your body. So adjacent to it and the next element sibling on the current level on which the main element is sitting, the next element sibling is this script, and that is why we are getting next element sibling as this auto injected script that has been injected by Visual Studio Code live server. Okay, now let us do a recap. We covered about how we can access all the surroundings of the currently selected element using these methods. Specifically you can say properties, and we traverse levels above the current node, along the same level, and also dive deeper to lower levels. So if you are able to visualize it using the video that we had covered, using the concept that we had covered in the previous video, then you will be able to relate it very easily. So in the next video I will be discussing about how we can create element with JavaScript and add them to the DOM. So I'll see you guys in the very next video. In case you are loving the content, do share the channel with your friends and colleagues, and don't forget to subscribe the channel, and thanks a lot guys.